So out of 100 trades, on average, I will lose 53 of those trades. So how do I maintain a good mindset, positive attitude towards the markets if I'm losing more trades than I'm winning? Well, I'm going to break it down with some stats and also some thoughts about the psychological aspect of Forex trading. So I'm going to quickly show you my WillssFX book to prove that, I do lose more trades than I win. Obviously, it's not something to be flexing. I'm not happy about losing more trades than I'm winning, but what I am happy about is the profitability of the strategy. Many traders get put off with having low win rate because of the hype on social media with high win rates. People claiming 90, 95%, 99% win rates, and I think it is ludicrous. There are obviously going to be some people that have high win rates. There are going to be some algorithms that have ridiculously high win rates, and this could be the case. But for the average retail trader, for the average trader, it's likelihood your win rate is going to be most likely below 50%. So how do you ensure you're profitable if your win rate is below 50%? And that is what I'm going to cover in this video. So we're going to start off quite simple with the stats, and you can see here quite clearly we have a 47% win rate. Over the past 8 months, we have been able to make around 14% profit, which is pretty good. Many people will say 14% isn't good. On a £1 million account, that is £140,000 profit. That's the way you have to look at it. Don't look at it based on your £1,000 account or your £500 account. That's not relative. You want to go, okay, I'm not going to look at it based on my £1,000 account because that's not my goal. My goal isn't to trade with £1,000. My goal is to trade with £1 million, £10 million, £100 million. So the gains might seem small now, but if you put it into the perspective of you as a trader in 5 or 10 years, would you be happy with £140,000 in 8 months? The answer is probably yes. And if you keep up that consistency, you could get to that stage relatively easily too, if you build a track record and you approach outside capital. So we're going to look here. Win rate, I've won 17 out of 36 trades, which represents a 47% win rate. This is completely fine. And as you see, we've only had one losing month, even though I do lose more than I win. It's quite crazy, but we're going to break it down. Now, I just want to say first that just because the win rate shows less wins than losses, it doesn't mean that every win is the same size as a loss. So that is what I want to cover first. The power of risk to reward. If you have a 1 to 5 risk to reward, you can afford to have a much lower win rate than if you're trading with a 1 to 1 risk to reward, or even a 1 to 2 risk to reward. And on average, my trades are above a 1 to 2 risk to reward, which means if you're doing basic maths, if I'm losing 50 trades, or let's make it easier, if I'm losing 5 trades and each loss is 1%, I'm losing 5%, so minus 5%. So if we put that down here, we have 5 losses equals minus 5%. We then have 5 wins, which equal, because remember the wins are around 1.25%. So those 5 wins is 12.5%. And if we obviously do 12.5 minus 5, we get 7.5. So that is our result here. So we've had 5 losses, 5 wins, we're rounding up here, 47% win rate, 50%. We're just doing it for the example here. But with a 50% win rate, with an average of a 1 to 2.5 risk to reward, you're making 7.5% over 10 trades. If you do that over 100 trades, you're making 75% profit. Again, 50% win rate, it seems like it's very, very low, but yet you're making ridiculous returns with this win rate. So let's make it a bit easier. So let's say you have 6 losses, which equals obviously minus 6%. And we have 4 wins, which equal, let's just assume that we're doing the 2.5 again. So 4 times 2.5 is obviously 10. And then we have 10 minus 6, which equals 4%. So out of a 40% win rate, trading with a 1 to 2.5 risk to reward, again, we're making 4% over 10 trades, which again is very, very good return. So if we look back to the stats here, we had 36 trades and we returned around 14%, which is very, very similar to this result here. And obviously I have had winners that are smaller, but I've also had losses that are smaller. And that's something I want to touch on after this main point. So you can see here, my strategy, even if I had a losing period where my win rate ended up going down to 40%, I'm still profitable. And that's what you need to understand when you are backtesting your strategy, collecting data on your strategy before taking it live into the markets. You need to understand your win rate. You need to understand what's your max losing streak, what's your win rate, and what's your average risk to reward. You could have a 60% win rate, but you have a negative risk to reward, and you might not be profitable. But also you could have a very, very high risk to reward, but a very, very low win rate, and you could still lose money. So you need to do the calculation. It's very, very simple. You just do it like this. What is the average loss? What's the average win? And you minus the loss from the win, and then you get your total gain. There are going to be exceptions, and this is the beauty of trading. My average loss is not even 1%. My average loss is lower than 1%, which means that when I win a trade, it doesn't have to be 2.5% or 3%. It means that can be lower too. So if you're able to cut your losses at a point where the trade becomes invalid, so oftentimes I get into trades when price retests into a particular zone. And if price obviously breaks above that zone and closes above, I can get out of that trade, whether it's 20%, 30%, 50% on the way to the stop loss, which means that I can cut my losses at 0.5%, 0.7%. So over 10 trades, I'm saving 3 to 5% profit, which over the years adds up to a fair amount. You know, if you do that over 10 years and you save 3% per year, you're saving 30% over 10 years. Let's say £1 million account again, for example, you've saved yourself £300,000, which again, you would be very happy with. So anytime you can minimize a loss or maximize a profit, you need to do it. I've also started scaling into my positions because when I'm right, oftentimes price keeps going. So my wins, they run for a fair amount of time. My losses are very, very quick, which is what I love. I love being in the trade, and if I'm wrong, I'm out of that trade relatively quickly because I don't want to be in a trade if I'm not in the right direction. If I'm not trading in the right direction, I want to be out of the market and looking for the next opportunity. And by cutting losses and by letting winners run, you are able to maximize your profits and minimize your losses. Scaling into positions also helps. It will obviously bring down your average win size, because a scale in might not make as much as the overall position. But if your risk is covered on the first position, for example, then you're just risking the profits of the first trade to make an additional profit from the scale in. And the majority of the time when I'm scaling in a position, it's an entry I would have taken anyway. I'm not going down to the lower time frame to try and scale in. I'm not impulsively entering the trade. I'm entering the trade exactly as I would normally. But it happens to be that I'm in the trade at a higher price for a short or at a lower price for a long. So it means I'm able to add an extra 1, 2, 3% to a position, which means I can make more money. And overall, if you can get an average winning trade, a winning setup, to add an extra 1 or 2%, then it means that you can have an even lower win rate and still make as much profit as you already were, which is the beauty of trading. You're finding ways to minimize your losses, make your losses smaller, lose less, take the best setups, maximize your profits, and end up with a lot of profit. That is the goal, as much profit as we can, whilst also preserving our capital. So that is how I lose more trades than I win, but still make consistent returns month after month. If you want to learn how I trade, the link trading mentorship is down in the description for you guys to check out.